Hello and welcome to the new My Football Club podcast. I'm your host, Augustine Sasso. You can email me at augustine.sasso@myfootballclub.co.uk. Well, I've got a special show for you today. I've got my talk with Matthew Delicat. A few weeks ago, I posted a thread asking for questions from Matt. You may remember that he played for the Fleet in 2009 for about 3 games. Matthew was born in Wales but grew up in Kent before moving to the States to play for Virginia Commonwealth in the state of Virginia. We start our talk with U.S. soccer. We actually talk a lot about it, his experience in the U.S., especially playing college soccer, some of his favorite moments, and then a lot of other things. Now, you'll want to hear about his connection to Ross Smith, another Fleet favorite. Here now is Matthew Delicat.
There's a lot of good athletes and there's a lot of good soccer players. And, I coach soccer now too. I coach kids. And I think the Richmond Kickers, we have something like 6,000 youth soccer players in our club alone. And
Wow.
There's probably half a dozen clubs in Richmond. So that goes to show you how popular it is. I've really enjoyed it here. I consider this my new home now, and it's been a great 10 years. It's kind of flown by.
Wow. Well, I had a little bit of a technical glitch. It's called not turning on the recorder. So so the beginning of the I'll just recap a little bit. So I know you said you've been here for 10 years and you played college soccer in your 4 years, and I missed all of that, and that the weather was an issue, as you said.
Very hot. In Virginia, it can get 90, even 100 degrees. You still play your games probably at 7 o'clock at night most of the time, but it's still very hot and humid. So it definitely changes the tempo of a game in that weather. Usually when playoffs roll around, which is later in the season, it definitely is cooler, and I feel like the game can speed up. You can run that extra little bit and recover faster, so it definitely changes the game a little bit. And obviously over here, everything is playoff oriented. It's you got the regular season, and even if you win the regular season, it's not the same as winning the playoffs. So if you make the playoffs, that's your goal. And then once playoffs start, it's a matter of they're kind of one-off cup final games. And then I think I played in 4 championships and have won 1, which is good. But obviously I'd like to have had a couple more. But winning that 1 championship was obviously was great, and that's kind of what it's all about over here.
Yeah, and for the people who don't know, now you play it's in the USL, and they change the names a lot, but it's USL this year. It's USL Pro, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the equivalent to the 3rd division. You've got MLS, then maybe not NASL, and then there's USL Pro. Last year, I think it was called USL 2. And USL has not been around that long. It's had a long history, but I think when you say you played in 4 championships, I think it's only been around since the early 90s, as I believe. So that's still a lot. I think 4 championships. The league might have been around 15, 20 years tops. So 4 out of 20 is pretty good. And I think the Kickers are, they're perennial contenders. At least from what I
think you're right. I think the MLS was formed in, I believe, 96. And I think the USL used to be called the A-League. And that was formed maybe a year or 2 earlier, like 93, something like that. So yeah, it's not even 2 decades old yet. But like you said, there's the kickers have been around since the beginning, and they used to be in what was USL 1 up until 2006, and then they dropped down. They dropped down to USL 2, partly because of I think the budgeting costs to travel. I mean, we had to travel to Seattle, which is 3,000 miles away, and then Vancouver, which is the same, Portland. There was a team in Puerto Rico, which is in the Caribbean, team in Miami, and dropping down to USL 2, it was mainly East Coast teams. It was Virginia, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina, so you could bus everywhere. So obviously the cost to travel and stay in these places that are 3,000 miles away, I think takes the toll on the club, and I think that was one of the reasons why they dropped down to USL 2. Now they've merged basically USL 1 and 2 to call it USL Pro, so we are in fact going back to Puerto Rico this year, and there is a team from LA in California.
Yes.
But they've made it into conferences where I believe they're like 5-team conferences, so we'll still mainly be staying kind of on the East Coast with maybe one trip out to Puerto Rico, but we will have to play something like 3 games in 4 days. So obviously it won't be an easy trip, but that's the way they're going to cut the costs.
Well, yeah, I think one of the things that I was following last year was the USL and NASL, and that was one of the reasons was just the travel costs, and so making it one of the things. My understanding is that a second division league has to be across 3 time zones. A third division or less doesn't have to be. You can have regional, regional divisions. And yes, definitely, it's a cost-cutting issue. It's one of the things that the USL has had to work on. But hopefully, they'll get the season underway. I mean, last year you had 6 teams in USL 2.
USL 2, there were 6 teams, so we played everyone 4 times, which not quite what you used to. So this year, I'm really looking forward to it. Now we've gone from 6 to 15, and we're playing a few extra games than we did last year. So I'm really excited about this season. I think they're moving in the right direction, and I think that's the goal, is just to gain a bit of stability and definite. More exciting for the fans to have teams coming in from LA and Puerto Rico and other places, as opposed to just playing the same team 4 times over. So
I agree. Well, the next question, I think you've kind of touched upon it. Your take on soccer at the lower level in the U.S. So I guess we can try and break that down to, maybe training, traveling, just somehow to kind of approach this question.
Yeah, I mean, it's been tough playing in the lower leagues. I mean, obviously the money's not anything like you get in the top league, like the MLS. It's if you become established and become a veteran player, you can definitely do a little better for yourself, and as opposed to what they call a rookie who comes in. But there's no relegation, obviously, or promotion.
That's right.
Which is again different to back in Europe, and just with the geographical locations of teams, you sometimes will play back-to-back games. Like I actually had a game when I played for the Rhinos. I think we played in Rochester, in New York, on a Friday night, and we flew to Charleston in South Carolina Saturday morning to play a game Saturday evening. So we played back-to-back games and had to travel something like 1,500 miles. I'm not sure how far it was, but it was a long way. So I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous scheduling that, I mean, I don't know how you can expect anyone to play back-to-back games like that with the travel. I mean, but that's the kind of thing you kind of have to deal with sometimes. But it has improved, and I think this year we have a couple of back-to-backs, but for the most part we do have a bit more spacing between games. But that has been tough to adjust to, having to play a game on a Friday and then you got to get ready for a game the next night. It's a little bit different to how things are done. Obviously, you get sometimes, Christmas time can be a packed season, but you still probably get a couple of days rest in between. So that's been one thing that kind of jumps out at me.
Yeah, because I'm in New York, and so my local team. There's a couple local teams, but the PDL Brooklyn Knights, and when I saw that they played it was either a Friday and then a Saturday game or a Saturday and a Sunday game, I thought, no, there's something wrong. But sure enough, they did, and they won both games. So there you go. Wow. Okay. Well, the next question is, when you played for the Fleet, it was a brief stint, and you showed some good touches. What have you done anything to develop your game since then? I know they didn't see much of you. I think it was only 3 games, but have you developed your game, improved your game since then?
Every season I've become a little more experienced, and I'm still learning. I'm 28 now. I'll be 29 soon, and every season I'm learning something new. My circumstances coming over were pretty tough. I mean, I had more time off than I would have liked. I think I had close to 6 weeks before I played for the Fleet, so it was a bit too long for my liking. I was hoping to make it over straight from my USL season, where I would have been match fit, and I think in 6 weeks, although I did train, I did lose match fitness, which, when I jumped straight into, I think my first game was maybe at Crawley, it was tough just to jump into the deep end and try and play 90 minutes. I think at 70 minutes I hit a wall and had to come off. But so that was one thing that I think kind of hindered me a little bit. Secondly, my wife had just given birth to my second child, Sophia. So I think I left about 2 weeks after the birth of Sophia, and left her by herself. She wasn't thrilled about it. She knew I wanted to come home and play, because I'd basically been in the States for 8 or 9 years at this point, and I'd been talking about coming home for a long time and give it a shot. So I did it, but it was tough being away, because I have my son Samuel, and it was tough being away from him, my wife, and my newborn. And one of the reasons why I ended up coming back home in December to the States was my son was having eye surgery, and I really kind of needed to be here for that, because he's had a couple of problems, he's had what they call a lazy eye, so he's had some eye muscle surgery. So I really needed to be here for that, and at that point I was kind of looking at what to do, and Lee Cowlishaw was really keen on me coming back to Richmond, and that's where my wife's family is from. So, looking from the standpoint of my family, I think that was the best move for me to do, although I would have loved to have stayed or come back and establish myself a bit more with Ed Fleet and in the conference. But unfortunately, it just wasn't going to work out that way, and I couldn't really see myself moving the whole family over to Kent, even though it may have been a great experience for them. I don't know if it would have been the right move, and and I did miss things back from the States. It was great being back in Kent. I don't think I'd been there since I was 12 or 13, so it was maybe 15 years since I'd been home.
Wow.
And I was staying in my old town, East Peckham, where I grew up and went to primary school.